this special meeting of the Madera City Council. Today is Wednesday, October 21st. The time is 5:55 p.m. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be live streamed on the city's website. Members of the public may participate in the meeting remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833 and enter ID number 983-0966-3421#, followed by *9 on your phone if you wish to speak. We will also accept comments via email at citycouncilpubliccomment@madeira.gov. If we can have a roll call, please, Alicia.
Mayor Medellin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez. Absent. Councilmember Montes.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Present.
And Councilmember Hawley.
Present.
Thank you very much, Alicia. As I mentioned, this is a special meeting. After this meeting, we will adjourn this meeting and move into our regularly scheduled meeting. We also want to start with the invocation. I see Pastor Leach from Valley West Christian is with us. Pastor Leach, I think we're going to have two invocations this evening, one for the special meeting and one for the regular. And after Pastor Leach, if Councilwoman Gallegos would lead us in the pledge. If you're able to stand, please do so with me, and welcome Pastor Leach from Valley West Christian Center.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, staff, those of you City of Madeira. I wanted to mention just before I begin to pray that the amount of thoughts towards the intellect of Councilwoman CC Gallegos went up incredibly with all those books behind her. And so, but in all seriousness, I'm really ready to pray for our city. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for Madeira. We thank you for this community that you blessed us with. We are so thankful for it. Of all the states, of all the communities, of all the cities, we are content and we love this community. We want your best for it. We thank you for those that have worked so hard to get us to this place in the past, even in the past years. And God, we ask that the future would continue to bring the best. We ask that you are grooming and building a community of those that care and want to volunteer and lead our city in the places that you have prepared and planned for it. So over these next couple of weeks, we ask for your divine appointments for our city, for the things that are going to be decided and chosen in different propositions and different elements of finances. We ask, Lord God, that you would direct the decisions and choices that are made. We thank you for our firemen, those that protect our community in those areas, our police, those that do the same there, those that work in our hospitals and take care of the sick, the needed. This time we especially pray for our teachers of this community. I was with one today. I was listening and hearing the very disappointing things that they're having to see and go through. And so God, I pray strength upon the leaders of our educational system. We ask for you to turn the tide of this sickness, that we might not just go to a normal, but that God, we may rebound and increase in greatness in our education system and all the other areas, our jobs and the resurgence of our economy. But we thank you for taking care of us and protecting us and blessing us. And in all this, we ask your protection and we give you thanks. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
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 Andy, did you want me to come back again at 7?
It won't be 7. It should be very quick, 10 or 15 minutes tops, Lance.
Did you want me to do that?
Yes, I would like you to.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gallegos.
Thank you, Joseph. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Moving into the approval of the agenda. We only have one item for this special meeting. As a reminder, this is a special meeting of the Madera City Council. We haven't got into our regularly scheduled meeting yet. Any changes to this evening's agenda, which is just one item? Seeing none, I'll call for action on approval of the agenda.
So move to approve.
Second.
It's been approved by Councilman Hawley and seconded by Councilman Montes to approve this evening's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Moving into public comment. Again, this is a special meeting, so public comment, the definition for a special meeting is members of the public shall have an opportunity to address the city council regarding matters on this agenda and only on this agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item? Alicia, did we receive any comments via email for the special meeting?
No, Mayor, none received.
And we do have some attendees, but I do not see anybody wishing to speak. So I'll close public comment and move into our one and only special item this evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Members of the council, community members, Arnoldo Rodriguez, the city manager. I do want to apologize by first of all, by requesting that we hold a special meeting. In my haste to prepare the agenda, unfortunately, I left out this item. And this item is going to be before the Madeira Arts Council in a couple of weeks, and I thought it would be appropriate to request a special meeting to discuss this item. Again, this is a special meeting simply for this item. It's item A1 on the agenda that was published about 2 days ago. So for background purposes, the city of Madeira, the Madeira Unified School District, and Madera County, around 2.5 years ago, established the Madeira Arts Council Authority at the Joint Powers Agreement. Councilwoman Gallegos represents the city of Madeira, and there are a total of 5 board members that sit on the Madeira Arts Council Authority. The MCAA has requested that each of the 3 entities provide startup funds to begin a process to identify future projects that the Arts Authority can commission or can engage the community. So the purpose of the startup funds is to fund is to identify future projects and then to potentially identify future operational costs and various ongoing fundraising activities. The MCAA initially requested that the 3 entities provide funding over a year or so ago. This item was presented to the City Council in June of 2019. However, unfortunately at the time, the city was in a state of transition and staff was not prepared to recommend to council approval of funding because we were in a state of transition. There were a lot of unknowns at the time, and we didn't, we being staff did not have a comfort level recommending approval of said funds. The MCAA has come back to the city and has requested funding. More specifically, they've requested year 1 funding in the amount of $29,920. And they've indicated that they would like funding for year 2. However, they have not identified the program needs for year 2, and they have not determined what that dollar amount would be. It is worth noting that Madera County has committed to funding 2 years of the MCAA. And since the MCAA started, Madera County has been providing in-kind services. They have been paying for legal fees, and they've also been staffing the MCAA. Madeira Unified School District more recently has committed funding for 1 year. If the council were to approve the requested funding this evening, and again, it's slightly less than $30,000 for year 1, the funds would be allocated from the city's general fund, more specifically the unassigned account. So with that concludes staff's presentation this evening, and city staff is recommending that the council this evening allocate $29,920 for year 1 funding of the Madeira Arts Authority. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Any questions of Mr. Rodriguez or staff on this particular item? I'd like to thank Councilwoman Gallegos. Oh, I'm sorry, you have your hand up, Councilwoman. Please, you first. You're muted. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the MCAA has been very patient with our agency, knowing that we've been going through a transition with a new finance director, trying to balance our budget. Numbers are coming through, and we really haven't done too much till we could finally sit down and say, these are our numbers, and we looked at the whole picture. So that's how come I felt it was a good time to bring this back to the council. We've been working on this for 2 years. The agency has gone a year with funding from the county and the school district, being very patient with the city, even because we are a joint power with them. We're in it together. We're a partnership, and it's been a struggle because I keep getting asked every meeting, where's the city at? Where's the city at? And I'm like, be patient, be patient. We're still trying to figure out our numbers. We have a new finance director. Let him get in there. There's other things he has, there's a process and there's other things on our fire that we really have to look at. So I thank Roger for being patient, because I've been like fighting at the bit, figuring out where we at from here. So it's a great project. You've seen from a couple of years now where they're at with the Dharma that came through, and then where the agency for the NWCA has come forward on where we're at and the vision that we're heading. So this money is going to be used for a consultant that will look at a plan and a phase, because we've talked about phasing certain things in. It's not going to be something that we're going to be able to build right at once. And that's where they're asking for the city's help and a partnership into this. So that's what I had to say, Mayor Medillin. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank you for your service to the MCAA. And you're absolutely right. It's kind of been a long time coming, but it's absolutely a partnership. And the city of Madeira is committed to the Arts Council and bringing the arts here to downtown or wherever it's going to be here in the city of Madeira. And we look forward to that continued partnership. It's going to be 1,000 steps, and we have to start with step 1. And I think we've done that. So thank you for serving. Please let everyone know on the board that we completely support, and we will continue to do so. I also want to let the record reflect that Councilman Rodriguez has joined us. He was just a few minutes late. And with that, I will ask, yes, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
So I want to thank everyone for their hard work that they've been doing up to this point. As you can see behind me, I have a great love of the arts. I have family members who also are involved in the arts, and we do fundraisers. Unfortunately, for this proposal, I cannot support. And the reason is that we have a situation right now with COVID that our city is in flux. We don't know what the future lies. We don't know what funding we will have or not have in the near future. And therefore, it breaks my heart because the arts and the written word are so close to my heart. But I am worried that if we continue to go along this path of having this COVID affect our city and our resources, even this minute amount is not a lot of money. I think that we would be better served to be holding off until we know where our finances are. This is a humongous project. It's a long-term project. But again, I just want to say that I wish that I could go along with this, but I cannot. And therefore, I will be voting against this measure until a later time, until we understand where the city is with our finances. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Yes, Councilman Montes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted a little bit of a clarification. So this is a 2-year request, but the second year would come back to council before we make any decision, right?
Correct, Councilman Montes. Correct.
Okay. All right. I just want to clarify that.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Medellin. At this time, I'll ask, and I think you've already addressed this here, Arnoldo, City Manager. The amount of $29,920, what does that do to our general fund? Is that going to create a big impact? And is the city in a position now to be able to make that contribution?
I think any time that the city's allocating general fund dollars, or any dollars for that matter, I think it's extremely important to understand that our pot of funds is only so large, and there's a finite pot there. With that being said, I feel comfortable allocating $29,920. The city, we have been extremely fortunate that during the COVID times, the city of Madeira has experienced a negative impact. Fortunately for us, when you compare the city of Madeira to the state as a whole or some of our neighboring communities, we have fared significantly better. The city, I think this council has been very prudent. Staff has been very prudent about how and where we allocate funds to. We are running leaner right now in terms of an organization. We've brought projects to the council, and sometimes staff does not feel comfortable funding those projects. But I think with this one, because again, not to diminish the value of $30,000, it is $30,000. With that being said, though, we do have unassigned funds available. We have, I don't want to say a sizable amount or a small amount. However, what I can tell you that I do feel comfortable allocating approximately $30,000 or recommending that council allocate approximately $30,000 to the Arts Council. Again, that money does come from the general fund, so it is going to limit our ability to do future projects. However, there are funds available, and again, I, as a city manager, do feel comfortable allocating that or making that recommendation to council this evening.
Thank you, Arnoldo. Appreciate your response.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Robinson. Unmute, please, Mr. Councilman.
I feel that the 30,000 is well worth, the effort that the Art Council had put forward, in union with the county of Madeira, and that's a small price to pay, especially when people are okay with consultation of a marijuana initiative paying $80,000. So I feel that the contribution to the Art Council is well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to comment? Alicia, just as a reminder, we received no public comment on this particular item. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I would totally agree. This council in the past council made a commitment to the Arts Council. I think it's just so vital to our community to move forward with the arts for our schools, for the health, safety, and welfare of our community. We have an opportunity this evening to on a future agenda item, we're going to discuss purchasing a property on downtown. I think the future is ours, that we can mold our future, our downtown, and we can make great strides and great progress, especially for the youth of this community. And as I mentioned before, it's going to take 1,000 steps, and these are just the first few steps. I think we should continue with that commitment. This is not the last time they will be asking for money, but in order to invest in our community, it's going to cost money. I think this is money well spent, and I'm going to keep my agreement and commitment to support the arts. If there's no further comments, I will call for the question on this item. Call for action, please.
I so move to approve A1 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Gallegos and seconded by Councilman Rodriguez to approve item A1. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Alicia, just for the record, if we can have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holly,
Please unmute.
Councilmember Holly,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
Please unmute Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I said no.
Councilmember Gallegos,
I don't think we caught that, Councilwoman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson,
Please unmute Mr. Councilman.
Yes.
and Mayor Medellin.
Yes.
Final vote is 6-1, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Alicia. And thank you all for muting while we're in the meeting. Now I will remind you to unmute when you're ready to speak, but thank you all very much for that. That concludes our special meeting. I will adjourn this meeting until our regularly scheduled next meeting, which will be November 4th. We will now move into our regularly scheduled meeting. Once again, today is Wednesday, October 21. The time is 6:20. We're a little bit late because we just concluded our special meeting. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be live streamed on the city's website, and members of the public may participate in the meeting remotely through phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter ID number 983-0966-3421 pound, followed by *9 if you wish to speak. We will also accept comments at future meetings, public comments at citycouncilpubliccomment@madeira.gov. If we can call roll again, Alicia, please.
Mayor Medellin,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Gallegos,
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Montes,
Here.
Councilmember Robinson,
Present.
and Councilmember Holly.
Present.
Thank you, Alicia. And we can never have too much prayer. We are going to have our second invocation led by Pastor Lance Leach. And then immediately after that, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to stand, please do so with me and welcome Pastor Leach from Valley West Christian Center.
It is an honor again. Thank you, Mayor Medellin, council members, as well as city staff and those from the public that are here. I will not repeat that prayer because I don't even know what I really said, but it was important. So I'm going to pray differently, and I'm going to pray for the healing of this community and for the God's providence over the COVID situation. So would you agree with me? Father God, we thank you that you are a good father. And as good fathers, you try your best to allow your children to live in prosperity with decisions and choices that they make. So we ask that you would continue to give us wisdom as we have navigated through what this entire world has navigated with wisdom and with watchful eyes. We have done our best. But now, God, we ask for you to come in and to do what we cannot do, that you would come in and you would bring healing. You would touch families. You would touch homes. You would touch workplaces. You would touch whole places of work in areas where we have seen difficulties of spread of this virus. And we ask that, God, you would begin to shut it down. And that, God, in our desire to work with you, that, God, you would work on our behalf and that you would come in and heal this incredible city. So we ask that in your precious son's name. And we thank you for the leadership, continued wisdom and guidance for all that they do and all that they're going to do. In your name, we thank you. Amen.
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 Guys.
Thank you very much, Pastor Lance. We really appreciate you being here. Councilwoman Gallegos, if you would, again, please.
Joseph, thank you, Joseph. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Nothing wrong with a double shot of a prayer and honoring our nation's flag. Moving into the approval of the agenda, I'll ask if there's any of my colleagues that wish to add, change, or delete anything on the agenda. Seeing none.
So move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Hawley and I believe seconded by Councilman Montes to approve this evening's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. And once again, as a reminder, if you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting your computer or device. until you wish to speak. We will now move into public comment. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers will be asked but are not required to, I'm sorry, I lost my place. They will not be required to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold that comment until the item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is opened. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. I will first ask our city clerk if we've received any email comments.
Yes, Mayor, we received 2.
If you would please read those, Alicia, thank you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and fellow citizens, lately there were many rallies organized by residents throughout California to oppose State Measure 16. Civil rights activists, law professors, elected officials, students, and parents all spoke passionately against State Measure 16 in those rallies. Why was that? I learned that State Measure 16 was proposed by the State Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, aiming to repeal Prop 209, part of California Constitution. Prop 209 clearly prohibits the state from discriminating against or granting preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, or public contracting. Yet Shirley Weber wants to repeal it. If State Measure 16 passes in the November election, it means we, the Californians, allow the government to discriminate against all of us based on our race, gender, or color, and allow special treatment by the state in college admissions, jobs, and contracting. This is totally unconstitutional and against the American value of equal rights. Furthermore, I have learned that the ballot label was written in very misleading fashion. It says State Measure 16 allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contracting decisions. The legislators are playing word game with voters. They replaced the word discrimination with the word diversity. This is discrimination, the name of diversity. Let's all not be misled by the ballot label. We should all say no to discrimination, and most of all, discrimination from the state level. Please vote no on State Measure 16 in November. Dear City Council, the supporters of, I'm sorry, that was from Jean Lang. And the second public comment is from Terry Fung. Dear City Council, the supporters of State Measure 16 say that you must support it or you are against a racist, or you are again a racist. However, if you look deeper at State Measure 16, you will realize that those that support it are really encouraging racism. A person's life story is special. Just because someone is white does not mean they should receive a minus about their life story. Every person should be judged about their character of their life and not their skin color. However, what State Measure 16 does is to judge people by skin color. It enhances a person's skin color while degrading another person's skin color. And why is that okay? Why is that not racism? Therefore, we ask the elected officials of this body to take a position against State Measure 16. All residents that support Martin Luther King Jr. should be against State Measure 16. Thank you, Terry Fung.
Thank you very much, Alicia, for reading those. Any others received?
No, Mayor, that completes the public comment received.
Thank you very much. And as far as attendees, nobody wishing to speak. So at this time, I will close public comment and move into our present. I'm sorry. Lance?
I'm sorry. That
No,
was
that's
so
quite all
fast.
right.
I'm not a city resident. I live in the county. Is it still okay if I?
Absolutely.
Because I do have a business here. I have a home that I rent, so that could maybe qualify me. I substitute teach most Fridays of the year. I enjoy it. I love being on campuses. I love being with young people. I love watching our teachers, the educational system at work. And I know that I can and I will share this at Madeira Unified School Board. But I believe it's important that you all are understanding what's happening in our school systems. I don't know how much you get to talk with teachers. I don't know how much they're allowed to talk to you publicly, privately. But when you're checking your kid into class and they can turn their screen off and still be present for the entire time, it is scary. it is very scary to know that this first semester has happened with kids having no real motivation, no real safeguards for their education from the junior high through the high school levels. Like I said, I don't know how much you can participate as we move forward into the next semester, but I hope that as you guys look into 2021 and as the school board hears from you and hears your hearts from your district, that you will deeply encourage them to do their best to find a way to get the kids back in the classrooms so that there can be accountability and opportunity for them to learn like we've all had. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you for that, Lance. Certainly appreciate your comments. And we know that you at Valley Weston for many, many years have always spoken directly to kids and have been there for our youth and youth ministry and so on and so forth. And so that's something that we need to do, is get our children back to school as safely and as quickly as possible. Thank you for your comments. And just because you don't live in the city does not mean that you cannot come here during public comment. Anybody can, so you're welcome anytime. Anybody else wishing to speak under public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move into our first presentation. We have with us Ms. Sarah Boss, the Director of Madera County Health Department, that's going to give us some wonderful news. Is that a good segue, Sarah? Is that okay?
Yes, that's great. I love giving good news. It's not always my job right now, and so I'm happy to have some. Yesterday, the data for the tiers indicated that Madera County has met the criteria for the red tier for the first of 2 weeks that are required. And so if we meet the criteria next Tuesday, Tier Tuesday, again, then we will officially move into the red tier. And there are businesses that are able to open in the red tier. I won't go into all of those. Just so you know, the data that was reported yesterday, the adjusted case rate was 4.8 per 100,000, and that's below the cutoff of 7. We actually did not have an adjustment to our case rate because our positivity rate was so low. When our positivity rate goes below 3.5, then there's no adjustment to the case rate. So that's great. Our test positivity was 3.4, so under that 3.5 cutoff and well below the cutoff of 8%. In fact, both of our positivity rates, both the countywide positivity rate as well as the positivity rate for our health equity metric are in the orange tier. The health equity metric was 4.9, which is just under that cutoff for the orange tier. That's important too, because if your positivity rates, both of those are in the orange tier, 2 tiers below where you're currently at, even if your case rate is too high, you also get to move. So a lot of this is impacted by us getting accurate positivity rates. Our positivity rate is almost always skewed a little bit higher, and this is true everywhere, because people are more likely to test if they're concerned, if they feel like they've been exposed or if they have symptoms. Well, what that does is it gives a sample that's not really true to the community as a whole. And so it's really good to have people testing across the board. And now that we have no supply shortages and testing turnaround is really quick, then about 2 to 3 days, we're able to do effective contact tracing with that turnaround. We have lots and lots of resources to be able to test. And so we have been doing a lot of promotion of testing. Of course, people can find those resources at our website, and there's a direct URL for testing. It's maderacounty.com/COVID-19 testing. And when they're there, they're able to click on the link to get their registration started if they want to be tested at the OptumServe site at the fairgrounds. But they can also identify if they're not in the city of Madeira or work outside and it's more convenient for them to visit one of our mobile testing sites. The calendar is there for that as well. So we encourage people to get tested, especially if they're out and about regularly. Some people are really staying at home and there might not really be a need for them to get tested, although they're certainly welcome to do so if they're curious or want to contribute to an accurate positivity rate. But certainly those who are out in any kind of regular basis, whether working, going to the grocery store, going to a faith service church, and certainly gatherings, and we'll talk about gatherings in just a little bit. We would encourage people to get tested periodically if they're out and about. Once every month or two is good until we're able to truly have a vaccination in place and really on the other side of COVID. I want to pause there and just see if there are any questions about the tiers or where we're at before I briefly go through a couple other items.
I don't see any questions so far, Sarah. Please
All right.
continue.
Great. So there are a few new guidances that have come out in the last few weeks since you last got a presentation from Public Health. The first is guidance about Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. And it's really, like many of the other guidances, pretty straightforward. We want people to avoid lots of mixing if possible. So trick-or-treating has some risks associated with it, certainly as people are clumping together and gathering together. And if they're wearing a costume, but it doesn't really include an appropriate face mask, not a Halloween mask, but a face mask, then that can introduce some risk that really isn't needed. And so the guidance on the state website is really cool in that it emphasizes a lot of other ideas in which to have a good time in this season as a family, both in your homes and online with friends. And so would encourage people to check that out. Of course, if people are going to do any kind of gathering, then we want people to be using safe practices such as face covering, social distancing. And of course, it's really hard if you're eating treats. So one of the things that I want to emphasize in talking about these guidances and that people are really anxious to get out there is that we're moving in the right direction, but we can always move back, and we don't want that to happen. So we really need to stay the course with the practices that we've had in place and the things that we've been doing in order to keep our businesses open and to do things safely and according to the guidance. Another guidance that was released was about private gatherings. And there are a couple key principles to that I just want to review quickly. The first is that its attendance should be no more than 3 households. And if you're going to do those private gatherings, as much as possible, those it should be treated like a cohort. So you choose those households in which you are going to gather on a regular basis. And some people are calling this kind of a social bubble. It's a way of expanding beyond your household so that you can have more support, more interaction, and a bit of a more like real life and regular life, but that you're not doing lots of cross intermingling that can really cause the illness to spread quickly. And so, of course, there are regular things that we all understand we know lower the risk: gathering outdoors, social distancing, not sharing foods, and keeping the time span for these gatherings to a limited time. Also, yesterday, there was an announcement by the state that regardless of tier, so purple tier included, so as of today, all personal services are able to open. And so that's like skincare services, electrology, nail services, body art, tattoos, piercing, and massage services. And so we're happy to report that. The state also released guidance with regards to theme parks or amusement parks. And I haven't had a chance to read this guidance. It just came off the presses, but it includes professional sporting events at outdoor stadiums. And so that makes me think of the Speedway. And so we've been in contact with them for a long time, and they've been very, very cooperative in working with us. And so we'll make sure that if there's appropriate guidance, we're reaching out to business owners that have really been on top of things to see what we can and can't do. So that's all I had to share for this evening. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Sarah. That is good news, and things are getting better. There's light at the end of this tunnel. Any questions of Ms. Boss from Council? looks like they might let you off the hook this evening, Sarah.
I see Cece.
Oh, there she is.
Sarah, I'm in the school system and I have a lot of teachers talking about, we're going to move to the next tier, hopefully, because everything's looking good, but we've had a few days with our numbers going up again. So if we do go into the next tier and our numbers start to shoot up in the next, let's say 3 weeks or so, how does that work? Is it going to throw us into another motion to another tier? How long is that wait? If we were to transition kids back into the classroom because we've been good, and then down the road, you know, the flu season hits, cold is coming, and our numbers start to rise again, what does that look like for us?
Okay, so there's multiple factors to that. The first is if we move into the red and we're in the red, but then our data switches and it's worse, and we have to have 2 weeks of purple data to move backwards. So it doesn't just instantly happen. It has to be a bit of a trend before we would move backwards. If for some reason there's an unusual reason why, there's a particular reason why our data has spiked that's not really community-wide. For instance, let's say there's a very discrete outbreak in a skilled nursing facility. And for a population our size, that can really have an impact on our overall case rate and positivity. And so there's an adjudication process where we're able to work that through. So just wanted to mention that there's a way in which we can kind of challenge the data as a whole with the state. And while we're in the adjudication process, we would stay in the same tier until a determination is made. So we wouldn't move backwards until we've kind of hashed it out with the state. The other piece of it is that if we are in the red and schools are able to open, moving back into the purple does not close schools. So schools would be able to remain open regardless of the tier. And that's one of the things actually we've really encouraged with school districts is if there's a safe way to do it and everything is moving forward productively, we really encourage schools to go ahead and participate in a waiver process, first of all, and then into the red tier, open more broadly, because if they don't open, we're in the red and we go back, then they have to wait. And we think that, you know, kids getting back to school is of paramount importance, and really encourage that along with businesses reopening. But I mean, getting kids back to school is really, really foundational. We want that to happen in a way that's safe while we've got the low data and we can kind of figure out what's going on and see what that looks like real time, to be able to work with schools, do regular screenings, make sure that staff and students are safe, and that the school districts are kind of in a rhythm of, what if there's someone with symptoms? How quickly do we get testing? All of those mechanics that might pose some logistical issues for school districts. We want to work that through without the whole community open and lots of other issues to be working through at the same time.
Yeah, because I think if the schools are to open, the kids to go back, it helps our community and our retail for shoes and clothes and supplies, and it would just be a good thing across the board, even for our city here in Madeira. And Sarah, you're talking about the numbers being shifting, like so we have a high population like at the prison that won't affect the tiers.
No, so we are required to report the prison cases. However, they don't count towards the tiers. That's the prison population. The staff that work at the prison, if they are a Madera County resident, then if they're positive, that does count to the tiers. So it's really just the inmates themselves that don't count towards that. The other important factor that I mentioned earlier, but it's really important in terms of movement between the tiers, is that even if our cases go up, if our positivity rate stays low, then we're still able to stay and move forward. And so testing ends up being super important to that, especially for a population that's our size, that's real small. That ratio between number of cases to total number of tests is really meaningful.
And Sarah, how are we with the lab here in Madeira that we're creating? Where are we at with that?
Right, so our public health laboratory, which is functional for lots of other things, we are putting in the PCR COVID diagnostic testing, and we anticipate sometime in December that will be up and running. I haven't had an update with that. I was out for a few weeks, and I did not have COVID. It was a medical leave, but it was not COVID. A lot of people have speculated about that because it happened to be 2 weeks. And so I haven't had an update about where we're at in terms of the lab, but when I left, it was looking like December.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. A well-deserved vacation is what I understand. Out for a couple of weeks. Good for you. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Boss? Well, Sarah, you're going to stay with us because we're going to move into the next presentation, which is a proclamation recognizing Pedestrian Safety Month and Virtual Walk to School Day. We participate in the National Walk to School Day with some wonderful partners here in Madeira. Madeira Unified School District, the CalFresh Healthy Living, the Health Department, Madera County Health Department, and of course the City of Madeira with our council participates, our police department participates, and of course our Parks Department participates in this pedestrian safety and walk to school day. I've had the pleasure of participating in a number of these, and if you've ever been at McNally Park at 6 o'clock in the morning with Councilman Hawley, and we're dancing the duck dance, or I forget what it is, but you get the kids jazzed and just excited. And when these kids are led to James Monroe or Virginia Lee Rose or Sierra Vista and these other schools by our police officers and motorcycles and cars, they just absolutely love it. And it's a very fun time. But what we are doing is creating awareness not only for the kids to be safe, but for the drivers that are going to work and sometimes not quite paying attention to our little ones that are walking to school, and also how healthy it is for us to walk. Not only the kids, but we see a lot of parents walking their kids to school on bicycles, and so the healthy living and by walking not only to school but to work or whenever we can is just so important. So this evening I have a proclamation recognizing the Pedestrian Safety Month and Virtual Walk to School Day, whereas the City of Madeira, a place for families in the heart of California, strives to continue being a safe city. And whereas during the pandemic, walking is a safe option for a healthy and family-friendly activity, and whereas it is important to teach students about pedestrian safety and become aware of some of the dangers that children may face on their trip to school each day and the health and environmental risk related to physical activity. And whereas students, parents, caregivers, and community leaders are joining together to raise awareness of the importance of physical activity, safe pedestrian habits, and to evaluate pedestrian safety in their communities. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Mayor Andrew Medillin, Mayor of the City of Madeira, do hereby recognize October to be Pedestrian Safety Month and Virtual Walk to School Day. Ms. Boss, I'd like to present this to you. I also see Mr. Gilmore, who's attended a number of our council meetings, and I see we have a few people with us this evening. So, Ms. Boss, if you wouldn't mind making some introductions, and I'd love to hear from you or Mr. Gilmore or anybody else who would like to speak at this time.
So first of all, I just really want to congratulate the team in being able to pivot and still emphasize this really important thing that we do on an annual basis, even though in COVID times we're not able to do it in the traditional way we have. We want to acknowledge partners that are involved. Our team includes Alan, as you mentioned, as well as Andrea Phil Brown, Joanna Aurea, and Elia Medina, and from Madeira Unified School District, Jamie Brown and Marty Bitter from the Athletics and Physical Education Department, as well as other PE teachers in the district. And with CalFresh Healthy Living at the Cooperative Extension, Ruth Salazar, Elizabeth Lopez, and Karina Messinas were all involved. And what happened is that they engaged with partners to be able to create a video that really highlighted the importance of walking, and it's fun, it's humorous, it's engaging, and it's lots and lots of different people talking about different ways that walking and biking benefit our bodies and benefit our community, as well as safety tips as well. And I didn't know if we wanted to show a part of that clip or if there's a way to do that, but I did send it if that was something that people wanted to see. And I am having some technical difficulties, so I'm not able to see who is actually on the line. So I might let Alan introduce those who are here and would like to speak. Let's start with Alan.
Thank you, Sarah. Mayor Medillan, good to see you, everybody. Good to see you. I just wanted to acknowledge the work of our UC CalFresh partners, our Madeira Unified School District partners, and the staff of the Madera County Department of Public Health, the Community Wellness Program. We're just genuinely operating in a whole new world, and there are still traditions and efforts that we wanted to continue to implement as part of our efforts to keep our community as healthy as possible. And really through the creativity of all of our partners, as well as the community wellness staff, we were able to come up with this idea of this very creative video. So I believe that one of our staff, Elia Medina, is on the line. So Elia, do you want to share a little bit more?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I just want to say, this is really exciting. Very appreciative of this. We at the Health Department, our mission is to lead, protect, and empower. And one of the ways that we do that is by pushing forward things like the Safe Routes to School and the Walk to School Day events, which connect with many issues that the community cares about. So like creating safer and more walkable routes to school, building a sense of community, and just pretty much inspiring families to use their feet to walk to school more often, active transportation. And like Mayor mentioned earlier, it takes a village. It's a whole group of us, a lot of partners who bring this together. And I'm very appreciative of the partnership that we have with the Madeira Unified School District, our partners at UCC, the City of Madeira Planning and Engineering, Parks and Rec Department, pretty much everyone. Extremely appreciative of all the partnership for making and helping us, collaborating with us in pushing these efforts forward. So very thankful for that. And we believe that working together, we can bring change for a healthier community. And that's what we strive for every day. So thank you so much. I think we have some other partners. I don't know if they'll like to speak. I think Marty's still with us from MUSD and Karina from UCC.
I will say a few words. Elia, thank you. I want to say on behalf of Madera Unified, I appreciate how much I appreciate the city recognizing public health and the Department of Public Health, I should say, as well as all the partners. This has been a collaborative effort, and I'll tell you, in these times, sometimes we don't realize how important exercise, walking, biking, and those types of things helps with our youth and all the sometimes mental illnesses or mental anxiety and depression and all the things that they're fighting right now going through this difficult time. So with these partners and the Wellness Committee, it has been an unbelievable effort, and I'm so appreciative of Madera Unified to be part of that, as well as our physical education department. It's been pretty cool to see, if you see the video, how creative people can be on Zoom. And it's good for us sometimes to kind of have a reality check, because we have so many of our little ones walking to school with no sidewalks. We have a lot of schools that still don't have paved sidewalks for them to get to and from schools. It's important, the safety and health measures of walking and biking. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Great to see you, Marty. Thank you for your comments.
I wanted to ask if Karina wanted to join the conversation and provide some input.
Hi, Ellen. Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm joining from my phone. On behalf of the UC Cooperative Extension for Madera County, the CalFresh Healthy Living Program, we are very appreciative as well of our partners, both our funded partners, the Public Health Department, as well as Madera Unified, and we've experienced a partnership like no other. I also oversee the Fresno County CalFresh Healthy Living Program, and I would say that Madeira supersedes any, partnerships and collaboration when it comes to serving our community. And each year that we've done this walk to school, it's been a new and a growing event. And so having this opportunity this year in such a unique environment and situation, we were so happy to participate and support our school district, our school site, and our PE teachers that also contributed to the virtual walk to school. And I just want to say that the cooperative extension stands by our community, and we will always be here to support healthy eating and also an active and healthy lifestyle, which is what the UC CalFresh program tries to inspire and empower in our community members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you very much for those comments.
And
Ellen,
just to add, just so you know, the kids this entire week are video in the different classes with their PE class. So they are marching as they are watching the videos. We're having them stand up, march in place, and walk in place during the duration of the 5 minutes that the video is playing. So that's the way we're motivating them to walk in.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. I would love to see that. I can only imagine. I'm sure the kids absolutely love that.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's all of our representatives, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And the key word I just heard from everybody is partnership. And I would have to agree with Karina that Madeira is second to none when it comes to partnerships. No matter what the topic is, people want to sit around the table and work together, and everybody does their part. And this is no different. As a matter of fact, I can say I know Madeira County Transportation Commission was not quite in on this, but it was through the efforts of the Walk to School Day and raising awareness of some of the missing sidewalks that we had the conversation. We invested some money, and now we have safer routes at Washington School. A school, Marty, as you know, was built for about 400 kids, and there's about 850 kids, where 90% of them, if not more, walk to school. So through this partnership and awareness and the efforts of everybody here on screen and many others, we're able to come together and do fantastic things for our community. So thank you all very, very much. I will make sure each one of you gets a copy of this proclamation, and continue doing great things, because you truly are inspiring our youth and putting smiles on their faces. Even though we're faced with COVID and these challenges, you're still in their living rooms, you're still in their hearts, and you're still doing great things. So thank you all very, very much for your efforts. We really appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor, my work.
Of course, Councilman Hawley.
Yes. Team, you guys doing a great job. I miss being out there in the park with you, hollering and screaming and going down to Sarah Vista and Rose Elementary and Millview. But keep up the good work. I'm so glad to hear that things are still rolling, even if it's on video. Maybe next year we can all come back together and holler and scream, because I missed all that excitement.
Yes.
That when we first started hearing kids participate, parents waking folks up 7 o'clock in the morning in the neighborhood is a real tribute. So I love it. Keep up the good work. Glad to hear this. And I know this proclamation is well worth it to all the partners. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hawley. We miss you.
Yes,
everybody. And those beautiful sidewalks, Mayor, are on that video. So Elliot did a good job presenting them. So
fantastic.
Yeah, many thanks for that. A lot of happy kids.
Good. Safe kids. That's what we like. Thank you again, Elliot, for your efforts. I know that was special to you in your department as well. So, and we'll continue. We're not done. We'll continue. Thank you very much. And the real treat is when we do get back to some normalcy and back to the Walk to School Day, you have to see Councilman Hawley dance at 6:30 in the morning. That's the real treat right there. We'll get back to that one of these days. Thank you all very, very much. Have a good evening. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye now.
Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar, I'll ask my colleagues if there's any consent item that you wish to pull or further discuss. Seeing none, I'll call for action on consent.
I so move to approve consent calendar as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Gallegos and seconded by Councilman Hawley to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. We have no public hearings this evening. Moving on to item D. Item D1 is an agreement with NBS Consultants for the preparation of the water, sewer, storm drain, and solid waste rate studies. I believe Mr. Sanchez will be giving this report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Roger Sanchez, Director of Financial Services. Before you is a request to seek your approval, council approval for the agreement of with the consulting services regarding the rate study related to the city utilities. So I'd like to provide some details into this, and I'll share my screen with you. So as you may recall, the RFP was submitted back in August of 2012. We had a council workshop back in August as well. And the deadline to respond was in September 11. So we sent audit notifications to 11 consultants. We received 7 proposals. There was a team dedicated for the analysis and the selection of the best company possible. So I'll provide those details as well. The last rate study was conducted back in 2014-2015 fiscal year. And the changes for water and sewer rates for this range between 2015 and 2020. So the water rates were increased incrementally between 9 to 10% per year. The storm drainage rates have not been adjusted since 1992. Solid waste services are contracted to a third party and were updated in 2017. So there's a lot of things that are in this proposal. The objectives were somewhat complicated and broad for all of the utilities. So we need to make sure that the revenues are adequate to sustain the services, address capital needs. As you know, on wastewater, there's a need that is coming up very quick. That is a multi-million-dollar project. And this, as it says, system depreciation. It needs to be appropriate fee classifications for the single family, multifamily, all those things needs to be addressed as well. And we need to be in compliance with rules and regulations for this as well. So the received proposals, as mentioned before, here's a list. And those are the proposed amounts from each company. So there was the way to address the best selection. The team that was assembled had to assess each company. And so we put in different points. So for example, it had to meet the stated objectives that I mentioned before. They have to have good past performance. It conforms with the RFP. There's an implementation plan and there's a cost proposal. So all of those points were a part of the selection process. And so NBS is the recommended. It was a top based on all those components, all those points. NBS is the company that is recommended by the cities to conduct the utility rate study. So other proposals, the other companies, they did very well, very good job. But NBS was the top candidate. The lowest ARRC did not meet the RFP requirements, and it was just out of scope. So NSP had such a strong, very good examples. We believe that they're going to communicate with the citizens, with the councils in a very user-friendly. So they had excellent examples, and they had excellent reviews from other cities as well. So very good comments. We also have to deal with, this is a Prop 218, and there's many requirements as well. So we have to be careful with the legal requirements that the company is competent, and it's also, it communicates well with the public as well. So we recommend that NBS be selected, and that the council approves the agreement in the amount of $114,320 and adopt the resolution and approve the agreement with that company. So with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. We appreciate that. Any questions, Mr. Sanchez, regarding this report? Alicia, any public comment regarding item D1?
No, Mayor, none received.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments before we move forward, because this is a very, very touchy subject that was really action by council 5 years ago that was put under scrutiny for a number of reasons. One, as we talk about increasing water rates, it's not something that any council or anybody wants to do. But we paid a consultant, just like you're asking us to do this evening, Mr. Sanchez, to do a complete rate study, and that's exactly what we did. At the time, we were close to defaulting on our bonds. We were close. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, we had maybe a year and a half, 18 months worth of maintenance and operation monies available. And that was right around the time that we had the Schnorr mishap, where we had a sinkhole. It was also said by a consultant that we paid, Mr. Manfredi, as a matter of fact, that this council approved, that for 20 years, this can was, in his terms, was kicked down the road because we did not incrementally charge. I think at the time, and it still may be today, Mr. Sanchez, you can confirm, I'm not sure, I know at that time we didn't have all the meters in. Some homes, most of the residential homes had meters, but multifamilies did not, and commercial did not have meters. So we had a 3-tier system that I'm assuming we're going to address that tier system again. It was kind of something at the time that we felt was fair and equitable, but as time goes on, it may or may not have been. As you mentioned communication, I'm happy to hear you say that, because there's a difference between not being transparent and not understanding. And that was the key at the time. So I want to insist that as we move forward, and we will have to with the Prop 218, of course, but that we make it our best effort to inform the community about the upcoming meetings, starting with this evening, and the steps it takes to get there. If we are going to increase rates, and we may or may not, it depends on what the study says, we need to make sure that we bring the ratepayer along for the ride, not necessarily tell them the result at the end. They need to be part of the discussion. So whether it's social media or on our website or something in their utility bill, we need to hear from our folks, because I am okay with incrementally increasing something. What we paid for milk and gas 5 years ago is not what we pay now. What most of us paid for rent 5 years ago is not what we pay now. And so I think if the ratepayer understands that what I'm getting for my money, that's a better approach than not charging them for many, many years and then having this, you must increase rates. And the increase was rather high. It really was. But at the time, it was a very difficult decision, and I know council did not like to do, but as leadership in our community, it's what we felt we had to do. I don't want to go down that road again, and so now we have an opportunity to rectify a lot of those issues. So an open forum, inform our community, even if it's a special meeting. Again, we're talking about increasing rates here, and our community deserves to know exactly why. They need to know what this money is used for. As we talk about enterprise funds, water, sewer, so on and so forth, it gets to be very complex. And And so I just want to make sure that we put our best foot forward. We make the right decision. I'm fine with this company moving forward to do the consulting. I just want to do a better job in informing our ratepayers as we do so. Any further comments from staff or council? If not, I'll call for action on this item.
Move
Anyone
to
at all?
approve
Would like to-
item D1, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. It's been moved by Councilman Rodriguez and seconded by Councilman Robinson to approve item D1. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. We appreciate that report and we look forward to moving forward with that. Item D2, there's two parts to this one. This is actions relating to Varbella Estates 2 subdivision. This is track number 20-S-01. We have two resolutions in front of us, and I'm sure Mr. Helmuth will explain both.
Mr.
Keith,
Mayor.
will you be giving this presentation, or who will?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Before
Yes,
we,
Mr. Rodriguez.
yes, before we continue, I will elect to recuse myself on this item. I am a loan officer employed by a local lender that potentially has borrowers that could purchase at this proposed site. So I don't deem this to be a conflict of interest, but to eliminate such interest or conflict, I will now recuse myself.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor.
I will leave the meeting. I don't know if I need someone to.
I will text you, Mr. Councilman.
Thank you.
To bring you back.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I will not be giving the presentation tonight. That will actually be Tiffany Luba. You met her, I think, for the first time back in April of this year. That would have been during the CIP presentation. This is actually going to be the first presentation that she gives to council. So I want to go ahead and give her a special introduction here because you may not remember her from that meeting since she actually did not give a presentation. Anyway, with that, Tiffany will go ahead and take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you, Keith, and good evening, Mayor Medellin and council members. This item relates to the second phase of a two-phase subdivision located on the northwest corner of Pecan Avenue and Monterey Street. It includes seeking council approval of the final map and improvement agreement and annexation into Landscape Maintenance District Zone 39. This item is typically placed on the consent calendar, but periodically it can be placed under this section to allow staff to answer any questions that the council may have. Since it's been a while since we presented this item to council and the agreement and covenant have been revamped, so it has a new format, we believe now would be a good time to do so. So at this time, I would like to open it up to any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Tiffany. Any questions of Ms. Luba regarding item D2? Oh, come on, this is her first report. You got to have a question or two. I think she's prepared. They're going to let you off this time, Tiffany. Doesn't seem to have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I will also ask our city clerk if we have any public comment regarding this particular item.
No, Mayor.
Thank you. And as Ms. Luba mentioned, a lot of times this is on consent calendar, but I'm glad you brought this forward in case there are questions or open forum. As we move forward, again, we talk about the ratepayer and some of the things we do with development here in the city. I think it's great that we put this on an action item. So if there are no further questions or comments, I will call for action on item D2. These are two resolutions.
We have to take them separate, Mayor?
Why don't you just recognize them for what they are, Mr. Councilman?
You can move them together.
Okay,
Yeah.
move to approve item D1 or D2-1 and D2-2
Second.
as presented.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Councilman. It's been moved by Councilman Montes to approve item D2, the two resolutions as presented, and seconded by Councilman Robinson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously 6-0 with Councilman Rodriguez recusing himself. Thank you very much for that. Tiffany, you did fantastic. Let me text Mr. Councilman and bring him back for item D3. And Hilda, I believe you have an announcement for item D3. I'm not sure if that's going to be in the beginning. I received a note that you had maybe clarification or announcement or something.
I can go ahead and wait for Mr. Rodriguez to come on and make that announcement.
Okay, great. We'll wait for him to join us and then we'll move forward with item D3. He may have assumed it was going to take a little bit longer.
We may explore in the future, having him be in a waiting room or something so he doesn't have to leave completely.
Yeah.
Somebody has music on.
It's noise ordinance in my neighborhood. They play music real loud.
Okay. Didn't answer the phone call either, so hopefully he'll be with us shortly.
Do you want me to proceed or you wait a little?
Yeah, you know what, Hilda, there's 6 of us here. I'm going to go ahead and let's proceed with item D3. This is agreement for special counsel. I'm sorry, this is agreement for special counsel legal services with Abbott and Kinderman, Inc.
Mayor and Council, on this item, City Manager Rodriguez will be making a report. I just wanted to note for you and for the public that the contract that's attached in the packet has been replaced with one that has a correction. There were 2 paragraphs numbered 20, and so that's been corrected. Everything else substantively, the agreement is the same and the exhibits are the same. With that, I turn it over to Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Hilda.
Thank you, Hilda. Mayor, members of the council, Arnoldo Rodriguez, the city manager. The item before you this evening is an agreement for special counsel for legal services with Abbott Kinderman out of Sacramento, specifically for assistance of addressing the High-Speed Rail Authority on the environmental impact report that the High-Speed Rail Authority recently certified, and they have filed their notice of determination pursuant to the CEQA guidelines. In selecting Abbott and Kinderman, the city was in need relatively quickly of legal counsel that had experience, that was well in tune with the environmental impact report in terms of its preparation relative to this specific segment of the high-speed rail, which is just north of the city of Madeira, and it goes to the Merced Los Banos track, and is referred to as the Y, considering it's the only section of the high-speed rail line that has a Y where it's an upside-down Y just south of Chowchilla, where the tracks are going to go both northbound and westbound. And so in doing so, staff, along with the legal counsel, felt that it was important to retain the services of someone, again, or an agency that had special knowledge and has been involved in the process. So with that, staff is recommending that the council approve an agreement with Abbott Kinderman for assistance for our discussions with High-Speed Rail Authority. In terms of the cost, the costs themselves, Abbott Kinderman has agreed a range of services between $195 per hour up to $400 per hour for their fees. In terms of overall cost, it's a little challenging to know the specific cost at this time because the situation is fluid. The notice of determination in terms of the time limits We are up against a timeline. We have entered into a tolling agreement with High Speed Rail Authority, and we are diligently working in partnership with the authority to address some of the city's concerns. So that concludes my presentation, and both Hilda and I are prepared to answer any questions. Thank you.
And in the world of attorneys, Mr. Rodriguez, that's kind of the going rate, the 195 to 400, and this is just for the duration of the tolling agreement, correct?
Correct. So it is both for the tolling agreement or for negotiations, which may extend past the tolling agreement time period. However, it is solely for the purpose of the high-speed rail authority discussions with the authority board.
You're right. I guess I should have. I'm
Right.
sorry. Please go ahead, Hilda.
Yeah, if I may clarify, you will be having a closed session where you will be delving into this, and you will be making determinations on where to go with this matter. And so I think it's more appropriate to get into those discussions in closed session. But at this time, you control the purse, if you will. You will control the purse as far as whether you want to proceed and whether there's a need to proceed with the litigation which you authorized at the last meeting, or whether there will be other activities along the way. So I would recommend that if you have specific details and want to wait until after closed session, we can do that. But otherwise, even if you don't wait, I think Mr. Rodriguez and I will be very careful to listen to the council to ensure that you control the purse.
And that's really all I wanted to say was, as far as the public is concerned, for this particular legal services will be strictly for the Y and the high-speed rail. It wouldn't be for any other services from the city. That's all I was trying to.
It's all related to the Y and the CEQA.
That's it. Whether it's negotiations or it just related to. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
So for the people who don't understand a lot of the verbiage today, a lot of the words that are being said, everything from Y to litigation to entering into agreement, basically we are joining Madera County in suing high-speed rail over CEQA. So Hilda, can you explain that or clarify that for me? I saw you shaking your head, so I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right track here.
Right. I will clarify. Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Yes, the city is not joining the county in any litigation. The city has authorized litigation. The city has not initiated litigation because High Speed Rail Authority and the city entered into a tolling agreement. What that means is basically taking a legal timeout to have further discussions to see if something can be resolved, and any further details will be provided in closed session.
So litigation, for a layperson who doesn't understand the word?
Thank you. Litigation means that the city could possibly file a lawsuit against the High Speed Rail Authority.
So Madera County tried to sue and failed in the past. They spent a lot of time and effort and resources from the county trying to stop high-speed rail. In this instance, this directly is discussing the CEQA regarding the Y, which is, as I think, as Arnoldo put it, just south of Chowchilla. So as I understand it, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, these litigation potentially from the city of Madeira against or with the High Speed Rail Authority is outside of city limits?
The footprint of what's called the environmental impact report on this project is not within the city limits. However, as you know, there's lots of actions that take place in life that have consequences outside of certain jurisdictions. And the city believes that there are impacts to the city from this project, and the city is trying to ameliorate some of those negative and detrimental impacts to the city by holding further discussions with the rail authority. And that's what is in progress right now.
So if the high-speed rail was going down E Street and crossing Yosemite Avenue, we would probably have a better case against the high-speed rail authority in litigation than we will if it's next to Chowchilla. And so it bothers me that we were told about this at our last city council meeting, and we were told on a Wednesday night that we had to take action by Friday or else we would miss a deadline. And there's a lot of people, not only on the city council, but in the public that don't have any idea what all this means. And we're hiring attorneys. We were told by the attorney, well, I won't even go there. I just think that this is a throwing away bad money. I mean, good money after bad, particularly since high-speed rail is not going through the city of Madeira. It's not even close. And we're entering into agreement with attorneys to go after high-speed rail for potentially able to be successful. I think that we would be best suited to be out of this completely and not join this. So I will be voting no on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Any other comments? Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, I just want to clarify. Hilda, you did say that the footprint wouldn't be necessarily within the city limits, but just to clarify that the high-speed rail is coming alongside potential sphere of influence within the city, especially within the alignment that's set for that. So although not directly in the city, potential growth annexation for the city could have detrimental effects. Would I be correct in saying that?
It would, at this time, there could be detrimental impacts that the city's discussing relating to the city's sphere of influence.
Correct. And I know that certain areas, of course, are proposed villages in those areas, sphere of influence. So I can certainly see how we can try to mitigate for some of those detrimental effects in the future. So I'm not opposed to going in this tolling agreement, at least to see if we can reach some type of agreement. I don't think that that hurts the city at this point, but certainly looking out for future growth. So I'm certainly in favor of moving forward on that.
And again, the only action right now is for right now is the agreement with legal counsel.
Correct. Correct. Thank you for clarifying that, Hilda.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Montes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, pertaining to this this item, we're trying to get as much information as we can, and I think it's incumbent upon us to explore and find out the options rather than just say I'm opposed to something or not. It is our responsibility to advocate for the residents of the city, and I think that's what this is going for. It's not to say that we are going to sue or we aren't going to sue, but if we need to consult with somebody who has the expertise, I think it's our responsibility to do so. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, and I would agree. I think we represent our community and future growth, as Councilman Rodriguez had mentioned. The discussion we had, I see you, Councilwoman. We talked about possible impacts, and even though it's not in the city limits, the impacts to our city as it pertains to noise or air quality or traffic in the future. If we don't at least address these items now, it will certainly be a negative impact in the future. So I agree with you, Councilman Montes. It's our duty and our responsibility as leadership to address these potential impacts. Councilwoman Gallegos.
I also agree with my colleagues, and I just want to give the example of we've had it brought to our attention that our past council didn't do anything about the water situation, and that there wasn't even an inquiry about a lawsuit against that issue. And so I think it's a great idea that Councilman Rodriguez is saying that we at least venture and look into it and get the knowledge that we need to make the right decisions. So I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Hawley, are you raising your hand or are you adjusting your screen? I can't tell. Okay. I'm getting pretty good at reading lips. You said adjusting my screen. Very good. Any other comments from council or from staff? Alicia, I will ask if we have received any comment for this particular item.
No,
via
Mayor, we
email.
have not received
I'll take
any
that off.
public comment.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to council for action on item D3.
I so move to approve D3 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Gallegos and seconded by Councilman Montes to approve item D3. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yay.
A roll call vote, please, Alicia, for the record.
Councilmember Holly,
I'm sorry, Councilman, you're muted.
No.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
No.
Councilmember Gallegos,
Did we get that on record? Councilwoman, I know you're muted. I want to make sure we're on record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Medellin,
Yes.
that's 5 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Alicia, and thank you all for your input on item D3. Moving on to item D4, this is a purchase of real property located at 103 East Yosemite Avenue. This is the parcel number 007-101-011. Mr. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The item before you this evening is a proposal by staff to purchase approximately half-acre parcel on Yosemite Avenue. If I may share my screen with council. So the subject site is located on the northeast corner of Yosemite and East Streets. Again, it's slightly less than half an acre and it has approximately half a block of frontage along Yosemite Avenue. It's bordered along the western boundary by East Street and to the eastern boundary by an alley. And then to the south, it would be Yosemite Avenue. The site itself was placed on the market by the existing property owner. The property has been in her family for an extended period of time. And if you grew up in Madeira like I did, I still refer to it as the McMahon's building, but historically it's been a hotel. The site itself is believed to be the site of the first building in the city of Madeira. And I'm saying believed because my understanding that it is the first site of a building in the city of Madeira, but I would not want to claim that with absolute confidence because someone can always come back and say, well, no, that was the second building. But again, the original building that was built on that property dating back 125 years or 40 years was a hotel. That building was burned down. It burned, I should say, in 1931. And then a new hotel was established on that property, and that's the building that unfortunately was lost to a fire February of 2019. Again, the property owner has placed it on the market. This is a Google aerial that shows a map. It still shows a building on the site. Again, you have East Street, which is along the western boundary. You have Yosemite. You have immediately to the north, you have Believers Church of Madeira with Pastor Purcell's. And then immediately to the north of that, you have the transit center or the intermodal center, which houses Greyhound and a cab company, and that's also the city of Madeira's. These are a couple of photos the day following the fire. Here's some firefighters continuing a fire. To fight the fire, council may recall the fire itself started at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This was the following morning. For some reason, I recall 15 engine companies. I could be wrong, but I know we had fire companies from Fresno County, Merced County, Madera County, City of Merced, City of Madeira, and I believe North Central Fire District, which is west of the city of Fresno. And again, the building itself was a 2-story building with a basement, and it was a complete loss. When staff found out that the property itself was on the market, it was placed on the MLS. We commissioned an appraisal. The appraisal returned with a value of $275,000. Staff has been in contact with the property owner. The property owner has indicated a desire to sell it to the city for $275,000 plus roughly $10,000 in closing costs. So again, the appraised value is $275,000. Of course, if you're a community member or a council member, one of the first things you would ask, okay, you're going to buy it, then what? And I know this is not a great sales pitch by me to say we do not have immediate plans. The one thing that I can tell you is that when you look at successful communities and successful downtowns, you have to have some catalyst projects in your community. And oftentimes that starts with the private developer, or sometimes it can start, historically, it would have started with redevelopment agencies. Unfortunately, redevelopment agencies have gone away in the state of California. And I thought that this was an opportunity for the city to take a lead role in trying to change the dynamics of downtown to try to create some synergy. We all collectively understand that Highway 145 currently is Caltrans property. However, we do have the visioning project that was recently wrapped up that we are now using as a catalyst to try to acquire additional funding to make some enhancements. A couple of things about this piece of property. It's at the intersection of Main and Main from my perspective as a city planner. It serves as the gateway to downtown Madeira. It's strategically located. It has excellent access. It has excellent visibility. And again, the goal is to acquire it. At that point, staff would come back to council. We would begin to have those discussions about what should be on the property and exactly what should we do with it. Again, downtown Madeira, I think if you would ask most Madeirans, it's lacking. There's a lot of things lacking in downtown Madeira, and I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to try to change that. The other thing worth highlighting is that the city of Madeira does own or control a couple of properties immediately adjacent to the site itself. So on this aerial photograph, the red area is a subject property. Again, it's slightly less than half an acre. Directly across the street, you have the Chamber of Commerce, which the city owns. That building, which is the former train depot. I'm saying former, probably 80 or 90 years ago. You have Pastor Purcell's church. Immediately to the north of that, you have the intermodal station. You have a public parking lot. And about 2 blocks to the north and to the east of the site, highlighted in pink, is you have the site of the new 2 3-story buildings that if you pass by the property today, you will see that that's a $23 million project. Roughly, if memory serves me, about $12 million of that, or $13 million of that is in grant funding from the state of California. The city of Madeira, along with the Housing Authority, and Moores are partners in that project, as well as with the private developer. So the positive is, again, that I believe that they this property could potentially serve as a catalyst, but again, it's going to take a little bit of time to collectively, along with the community, to decide what's best for the city. So with that being said, staff is recommending that the city council authorize and allocate $275,000 for the purchase of the property and roughly $10,000 for closing costs. These funds would come out of the city's general fund. There are unassigned funds available. This is not a small request. I understand that we're asking for roughly $285,000. But with that being said, I do believe that this site could serve as a catalyst for future downtown Madeira, and it can really establish a true foundation for downtown redevelopment. So with that being said, that concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to the mayor and council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez. Very exciting. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Member Dillon. I'm Want to just say that I'm excited about it only because this is a true public-private partnership opportunity, no different than the Freedom Industrial Park. And just remind folks also with this new downtown project that we got going, the city invested over $720,000, but in return, they're getting back close to $3.6 million in infrastructure that's going to enhance all that area down on 6th and 6th. Definitely going to enhance downtown and going to provide amenities for transportation. So I feel that if we're going in the right direction about wanting to bring the Madera County Arts Council in, wanting to do something downtown, then I think we have to motivate people that, hey, the city is taking that initiative step and wanting to make this community a better place, more specifically our downtown. So certainly excited to see that this we're taking action like this, and hopefully we can land another partner willing to bring in infrastructure to our community.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Councilman. Anybody else? Yes, Councilman Montes.
Yeah, I just want to add too, this is a great opportunity. This is, even though it's not my district, I get a lot of inquiries and, what are we doing here? What are we doing there? So this is something that we can tell the community, hey, we're taking steps to move forward and get that revitalized and kind of control what's going on. So I think this is a really great opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councilman. Alicia, have we received any comment via email or otherwise on this particular item?
No, Mayor. None
Thank
received.
you. Any other questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a tremendous opportunity for us to take action on downtown and improving downtown. This has been a thorn in our side for years. And for us to have this opportunity to be able to move forward and make improvements in our downtown area is a really, really good thing. So I really appreciate the work that we're putting into improving our downtown.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? I want to echo the comments by my colleagues, but I also want to show my appreciation and thanks to our city manager. Very instrumental in working with the property owner for quite some time now. I think even that evening, or the pictures that were taken, is when Mr. Rodriguez had met the property owner and continued a good working relationship. We were not on good solid ground financially, and I say that, I just mean we didn't quite know exactly where we stood. But the doors of communication were kept open by Mr. Rodriguez and the property owners. And so thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for being diligent with this project. And as you talk about the corner of Main and Main, and we talk about our special meeting in the Arts Council and taking just the first few steps on a project that's going to take 1,000 steps, it's called vision. And having vision for our community and having vision for our downtown, nothing will be done overnight. Everything costs money. And we want to have that vision so the next generation can enjoy our downtown, something to be proud of. And I think this is a huge step in that direction. So Mr. Rodriguez, our city manager, thank you very much for your diligence, and your team as well. I know they played a large part. And having that vision for our downtown and celebrating who we are. And I say that because I've had many conversations with Pastor Leach, and we talk about downtown all the time, and he says that, let's celebrate who we are, not who we're not. And this is a huge step in doing so. So thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for your efforts. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll bring it to council for action.
So move to approve D4 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Gallegos and seconded by Councilman Rodriguez to approve item D4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Mayor, prior to moving on to the next item,
yes,
I should also be thanking Fred and Susan Savage, the property owners. They've been extremely patient with the city. We've had a lot of discussions. We've had a lot of sit-down meetings about their plans. They had expressed a strong desire to rebuild in Madeira. Her family's born and raised in Madeira. They're longtime Madeirans. And so with that, I'm extremely appreciative that they provided the city the opportunity to be the first bidders on the property. And again, I'm extremely grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I believe his statement to you in the very beginning was he shares in our vision and would give you, meaning the city of Madeira, first opportunity to do so. And he has been patient. So thank you for recognizing the Savages. Moving on to item D5, this is Proposition 68 program application for statewide park development and community revitalization program. Mr. Scarborough.
John, I unfortunately cannot hear you. Can everyone hear John? Okay.
No.
I wasn't too sure if it was my computer, which happens on occasion.
Just said yes.
John, I still could. John, you're still cutting out. So if you'd like, I can start it as we work on your audio.
Hey, John, in the bottom left on your corner, there's a mute button. There's a little caret right to the right of that. Click that and you can adjust your microphone.
John, I'm sorry, John, we see your lips moving, but I don't believe any of us can hear you. Now I see you're muted, unmuted.
So
No.
John, if you'd like, if you want to put up the PowerPoint, I can walk council through the items this evening, and I'll just simply say next if that's okay by council. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, John. Thank you very much. A good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you this evening is a request to adopt 2 resolutions for the submission of 2 different grant applications for Proposition 68 funding. This would be round 4 of Proposition 68 funding. Today, to my knowledge, I do not believe that neither the city or any agency in Madera County has received Proposition 68 funding. John, next slide, please. So this is a collaborative process between the Grants Department and the Parks Department to submit 2 different grant applications. So there are 2 resolutions included in your staff report because we will be submitting grant applications for 2 different projects, both of them to enhance our city parks. In round 4 of Prop 68, there's close to $400 million of funds available, but that is for the entire state of California. Next slide, John. So the 2 applications that are going to be submitted with council's authorization, the first one is the build out of Sunrise Rotary. We would be adding new softball fields, and then we would also be expanding our parking lot and some soccer facilities. The second resolution is for a park that has come together probably in the past year, and that would be a brand new park, which right now we're referring to as Olive Park. It would be on the southwest corner of Olive Avenue and Knox Street. And this is what we would typically refer to either as a pocket park or a neighborhood park. It's probably a little bit too big to be a pocket park, but maybe it's a little too small to be a neighborhood park, so it's kind of a tweener park. Next slide, John. So for both projects, a tremendous amount of public outreach is required. John and his team are going to begin that process. And I believe there are a total of 5 community meetings that are, or a minimum of 5 community meetings are required. During COVID, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but John and his team have a game plan for how to best address that. The more community meetings that one has, the higher points that you receive as part of the point system in terms of who is awarded. And so we want to be confident or certain that we are putting the strongest application that we can for both projects. And of course, we would love to have 2 grants awarded to the city. I think we would be pretty happy with 1, but again, the goal is we're going to submit 2, and our goal is to see if we can get 2. Next, John. So in order to deliver the strongest application, we did reach out to several consulting firms. Council may recall that unfortunately during round 3, which I believe was last December, the city was unfortunately, we were not successful in being awarded grant funding. The grant funding that the staff submitted last year was for Sunrise Rotary, and again, we were unsuccessful. The county of Madeira also submitted a grant application for Prop 68 funds for Courthouse Park, and unfortunately, they were also unsuccessful. However, rather than continue to submit the same grant application, what we did is we reached out to several firms that specialize in Prop 68 funds, different consulting firms, and we've identified Townsend Public Affairs as a very reputable firm, and Townsend is going to be assisting the city in complete the application for the Olive Park grant. And then for Sunrise Rotary, we have reached out to California Consulting out of El Segundo, California, with local offices in Fresno. They are going to be assisting the city in peer reviewing the application that we submitted last time to make it a stronger application. At the same time, John and his team have been meeting with the state, and we have received a decent amount of information about modifications that we can make to make our applications stronger. Next item, John. So Olive Avenue Park, it's slightly less than half an acre. It's roughly 0.4 acres. Council may recall that this is a remnant piece of property that the city acquired for the street widening project for Olive and Knox. The Olive Avenue project continues to move forward. That intersection is planned for a signal light, and that created an opportunity where the city had to acquire an entire parcel because there was a single family home there that the city had to remove because it was in the ultimate right of way. And in order to do that, we had to purchase the whole property. And that provided a good opportunity for us. When we sat down and looked at it, said, well, what are we going to do with this piece of property? And we felt it was an excellent opportunity for part of our community that's lacking in park space. We currently envision green space to include a structure, swings, picnic shelter, and tables and barbecues. However, with that, we are going to be going out to the community. One thing the community and the council are probably aware of, our city is currently lacking swings. And as a father of small children, I'm always looking for swings. And so that would be nice. John, next slide, please. This is an aerial photo. It's looking south and west. You can see that this is a recent aerial photo because a single family home was demolished. I want to say maybe 9 months ago, if that. And so there's a single family home to the south. There are multiple single family homes to the west. But the good part about this piece of property is that it is largely going to be open on 3 sides. So it's going to be open. It's going to be very inviting. We're obviously going to take safety. Safety is going to be key for us. So we're going to want to make sure that we're providing appropriate fencing along the major streets because we would not want small kids chasing a ball to inadvertently cross traffic. And next slide, John. The second application, again, it's for Sunrise Rotary. That's currently a 49-acre park. It currently contains 2 softball fields. Two softball fields, soccer fields, some play structures, picnic shelters, and restrooms. However, there are currently 12 acres that are undeveloped. And what we would like to do as part of this application is to build out the final 12 acres to make it a complete park. Next slide, John. So for Sunrise Rotary, we are going to be requesting $4.2 million. No, I'm sorry. The previous application we submitted was a request for $4.2 million. Again, we were unsuccessful in receiving those funds. The state received 478 applications with $2.3 billion worth of requests. And you probably recall that that in this round, there's roughly $400 million. And then there were 62 grants last round with less than 12% of applications receiving funding. So with that, we felt that the prudent thing to do would be to reach out to a couple of consulting firms that have that specialize in this to see if they can assist the city to make our applications more competitive. Next slide, John. So here's an aerial photo of the property looking north and east. You can tell in the background there are large green areas. Those are the soccer fields. Immediately to the along the western side, you have Millview Elementary, and then I still refer to it as Sugar Pine. I know the community no longer refers to it as Sugar Pine, so I understand I'm dating myself here, but and there's Sugar Pine School there. And then on the upper right-hand corner, you see the two existing softball fields. But the plan would be to build out the park right along Tozier, which is also Road 28. Next slide, John. Here's an aerial photo looking south and west. Again, those are the two softball fields, so we would be adding softball fields that would almost mirror those two to the, it would be to the south and to the east. Okay, next slide, John. So staff is recommending that council this evening approve the submittal of the two applications. The submittal does not tie the council to anything specifically. Again, it's simply to submit the applications, acknowledging that staff is authorized to submit these on behalf of council. So with that concludes staff's presentation. John, I would ask you, did I miss anything? But we wouldn't be able to hear you. So hopefully I didn't miss anything.
Look into the camera and let us know. Maybe we can read lips. I see a shaking of the head, so that's a good sign. But I think he's still talking. That's the epitome of teamwork right there. Way to pick him up, Mr. Rodriguez. With John on the slides and Mr. Rodriguez picking it up right there. That's awesome teamwork. Thank you for that. Any questions from council regarding these items? Alicia, have we received any email questions? No, thank you very much. This would be fantastic. I know these applications are very competitive. It's a lot of money out there, as you mentioned, Mr. Rodriguez, but there's a lot of applicants out there. But our Parks Department has done a fantastic job. I know we have received some grants in the past. We were able to put some lighting out there due to grants. But I have all the confidence in the world in John and his team and our grants department to get some of this money. As you had mentioned, I'd love them both. But we got to start somewhere, and this is a great place to invest in our community out in that particular area. If there's no further questions, I'll bring it to council for action.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Robinson and seconded by Councilman Rodriguez to approve item D5 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Again, Mr. Rodriguez, thank you, and Mr. Scarborough for that tandem presentation. Moving on to admin reports. Item E1, this is Madera County Transportation Commission Fiscal Year 2020-2021 Unmet Transit Needs Report. Ms. Iareta, I believe, will be giving us this report.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I will verify that you can see my screen and that you can hear me well.
Yvette, can you change your screens to the other screen? We can hear you okay, though. If you hit swap on that and you should be okay. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, are we good?
Yes, we're good, Yvette. Please proceed.
Very good. Okay, the item I bring before you this evening is a transit item. This is an item that was requested by council a few meetings ago, and I'm happy to bring this report to you. It is the Madera County Transportation Commission fiscal year 2020-2021 Unmet Transit Needs Report. What I do want to say up front is that the MCTC coordinates this process. So I'm not going to be able to speak in great detail about the process that they carry out internally, but instead I'm going to be focusing on the report. I will try to give you really brief history of the unmet transit needs, go over some definitions. What is the unmet transit need and what is their definition of reasonable to meet? When I say their definition, I mean MCTC's definition. Unmet needs, I will go over the unmet needs that were relevant to Madeira Metro. Also the comments that were not deemed to be an unmet need and why. And I will go over what SS TAC's recommendation was to MCTC. What does this mean for Madeira Metro? And then go over some appropriate actions to be taken. Feedback from, and at the end, I would like to request feedback from City Council and answer any questions that I may be able to do so. So as far as the history, let me just start by saying that the unmet transit needs process started in 1978. This is a requirement by the TDA, Transit Development Act, and every year Madera County Transportation Commission is tasked with coordinating this process. So this year, on May 20th, 2020, Madera County Transportation Commission Policy Board held a meeting to receive public comments on the unmet transit needs. At that time, 13 comments were submitted regarding potential unmet transit needs and service improvements in the county. These comments are then forwarded to the Social Service Advisory Council, who serves as an aid to MCTC Policy Board. The SS TAC provides recommendations to MCTC Policy Board with a determination as to whether there are unmet needs and a determination as to whether those needs are reasonable to meet. So what is an unmet transit need? Basically, it includes all essential trip requests by transit-dependent persons for which there is no other convenient means of transportation. And it is deemed to be reasonable to meet if the following conditions apply. If it is feasible, if it has community acceptance, if it serves a significant amount of the population, if it is economical or cost effective, and it can, it can demonstrate cost effectiveness. So from the 13 comments that were received this year, 9 were relevant to Madeira Metro. Of the 9 comments, 3 were by definition an unmet transit need, but ultimately they were deemed to not be reasonable to meet, and I'll go over that in a little bit. The 3 that were defined as unmet transit need are as follows. 1 is the request to reopen a bus stop at Walmart. Another one was to develop 30-minute increments or headways for all of Madeira Metro routes. We have 3 fixed routes, so that would cover 1, 2, and 3. Currently, we only have Route 1 on 30-minute increments. And then the third unmet transit need comment was in regards to the extension of Madeira Metro service operations on weekends. Comments that by definition were deemed to not be an unmet need are as follows. It was requested that trash cans should be installed in all of Madera Metro buses, that certain enhancements to dial-a-ride as they relate to dispatch service be made, also to equip bus stops and buses with route-related signage, apply for grant funding to secure free rides for students, and pursue of regional funding for an electric rural ridership program, and also to mandate discrimination prevention and accessibility training for all Madera County transit staff. So again, by definition, these comments were not deemed as unmet needs. The SS TAC recommendation to NCTC was as follows. Upon reviewing all the comments relevant to Madera Metro and recommendations provided by SS TAC, NCTC Policy Board adopted the Resolution 2006 on June 17, 2020, approving findings of the fiscal year 2020-2021, and it was determined that Madera Metro has no unmet transit needs, nor needs that are reasonable to meet. So what does this mean for Madera Metro?
I'm sorry, Yvette, Mayor Medellin. Councilwoman Gallegos has her hand up. I'm not sure, Councilwoman, if this is for something now or Councilwoman Gallegos has a question, Yvette.
It was, you didn't see me, Mayor Medellin, but it was about a slide, 2 slides before this one. Right there, Yvette. On one of those bullet points, it said equipment, bus stops, and buses with routes related signage. That was a comment on number 6 of the report. I've been on council 4 years, and for the first year, I was kind of just trying to figure out. After that, it's been 3 years that we have looked to put signage at our bus locations. And the response from, I think, our staff was that the routes are changing and we're going to wait. The routes will keep changing. The routes are going to change, and they've changed now between now and the 3 years that I've been asking for signage at these related stops. You have no idea what stop you're at. And if you're trying to get in contact with Dial-A-Ride or our Metro on saying I'm at stop, you're trying to remember what street is what, and they have no idea. So my question is, in our comments, we're saying we're going to do it, but we're waiting because we're going to change routes. How long are we going to wait? Because I'm hearing this from citizens, and I've been saying every year and every month that I say, we're working on it. It's, it's going to happen, and it's still not happening. 3 years later, we still don't have a sign on our routes, and it's going to change. The route could always change no matter what. But the actual stop should have a number and have a related sign.
Right. So we started talking about this in 2017, 2018.
Right.
At that point, we received the first grant to assist us with this project, and it was a $22,000 grant, LC-TOP grant. So we thought that we could possibly do something with $22,000, but it's not a lot to design new bus stops and replace 106 bus stops. So we applied for additional funding the year after and received more money under SB1. This was in 2018, 2019. That was $90,000. And then also kind of split the request for LC-TOP between farebox modernization and also if we had any extra under farebox modernization, we will also use it for additional for the signage. So in all, we have a bit over $236,000 that is going to be used for signage and some of it for farebox modernization. So it's been a process of 3 years rounding up the funding. And in the meantime, what we have been doing is focusing on developing the new name, developing the new logo, and completing other projects ahead of the bus stop signage. So we've been spending time, obviously, with the development of the new transit center, and ensuring that that's complete with the furnishings and the camera installation there, the radio installation there. Other projects that have come before that are the bus fleet procurement of the 9 buses, as well as the wraps. So there's been, I think there's been efforts to round up funding, as well as completion of other projects, and which includes the new logo, and then also hoping to get the Caltrans planning grant, which would be very essential in identifying whether or not we need 106 or 110 bus stops, which we currently have, and then determine, do we need only maybe 50 bus stops in the city, or do we need 200 bus stops in the city? So really crossing our fingers, hoping that we did receive a planning grant. We applied 2 years for the Caltrans planning grant, and this year we finally received it. So all those efforts have been underway to try to ensure that we can develop this and do it once we understand how many signs we need.
Okay, but neighborhood watch signs are $40, and we're not asking for a fancy sign. We're just asking for a sign that has a word that says bus stop number 1. If neighborhood watch signs are $40 times 100, that's $4,000. We have the logo already for our buses that could be used for the signage, just to put it. Our city logo could be used on the sign with the number 1 or the number 10 or whatever stop it is. I don't see how this has taken that many years and we still don't have signs that are bus stops. A lot of our residents use these stops all the time, and I've lived here all my life, and sometimes I'm trying to think, what street is this? And you're on the phone, and the dispatch wants to know the street. It would be so much easier for our residents to say, oh, I'm at stop number 10. Boom. And if we were to change it, it's not that hard to unscrew a sign and screw it on another stop. I don't know if I'm not getting an answer or we have to research it, but I've been to the transit commissioner meetings and I expressed the concern that this is something that needs, and I know we have new buses and I know we need to get cameras, and I know that was important, but the signage is something that has gone on for too long, and to see the report that we're going to put it off even more because we're going to change our route is very disappointing. I mean, I don't know how my other colleagues feel, but I'm very frustrated with this.
I
have a comment.
If I may just ask Yvette a brief question. Yvette, I apologize. You may have said this during your presentation and I may have missed it. How many bus stops do we have in the city?
So we have physically counted 106.
106.
Yes. Sometimes we keep changing whether it's 106, 110, because there are some stops that are considered bus stops, but they're not necessarily identified on the route.
Okay,
Yeah.
understood. I'll tell you what, if it's okay and if it's appropriate, Councilwoman Gallegos, allow us to go back, we'll talk about it internally, and we'll provide a report back to the council to make sure, because community members do have to have an understanding of where their bus stop is at. I don't think that's asking for much. That's the appropriate thing to do. So we'll come back with the plan, and so this doesn't continue.
And City Manager Rodriguez, I wouldn't have been so passionate about it, but when I saw the comment that we're going to put it off because we're changing routes until the routes stabilize, they never stabilize. We keep creating new ones, so there will always be change in our city because we're growing. And if we wait until the routes are stable, we'll never have signs on our stops, never. So that's why.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilwoman. I share your frustration. I really do. I'm going to ask Councilman Hawley for his comment, and then we'll continue on. And I have some comments as well. Thank you very much, Councilwoman, and I understand completely your frustration. Councilman Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Gallegos on this because I've been running this down for the longest. I'm not so crazy that we're not getting the signs up. When we do get them up, we need to have a time frame. I've seen people sit out there for over an hour waiting on the bus. We have no sense of direction, what time they're going to be there, how often they come through. We need to have a stability of how long people, so they'll know when the bus come, when the next ones come. We need to get some time frames in this thing, because I know we're always changing, but you see a bus come through there, they don't make stops like they post, or if nobody's sitting there, I can see that. But if it's a time frame, people know what time to be at that bus stop. And we don't have no consistency in that. And I like to see that happen as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Mr. Rodriguez, are you suggesting are we going to continue with the presentation, or did you want to bring this back with?
So my recommendation, if it would be appropriate or if it's okay by council, is to continue the presentation, because this is an informational item this evening.
Yes.
And we being staff are soliciting council feedback, and we'll be sure can we put this on top of the stack when it comes to the Madeira Transit Center or to Madeira Metro, and we'll come back to council at a future meeting date with a game plan and some timelines to make sure that we're addressing the council's concerns and the community's needs. Thank you.
Okay, then I will hold my comments, and I'm sure my colleagues may have comments as well, but why don't we continue forward, Yvette? And then you're right, this is information only, but you'll need to hear from council when Yvette's complete with her report.
Okay, so by definition, Madeira Metro has no unmet transit needs, nor needs that are reasonable to meet. And that's for this year's unmet transit needs process. So what does this mean for Madeira Metro? Though NCTC Policy Board determined Madeira Metro has no unmet transit needs, nor needs that are reasonable to meet, city staff plans to take the appropriate actions to address each comment to try to find viable options to address each need. So appropriate actions to be taken. We will be evaluating the transit system and devise operational and policy changes to formulate a Madeira transit plan that will enhance operations. And the objective for developing this plan is to improve connectivity, efficiencies, headways, ridership, and/or devise a new service boundary. And that will require the collaboration with multiple agencies and committees, including the Madeira Metro Transit Advisory Board, Madeira County Transportation Commission, Madeira Unified School District, Madeira County Department of Health, and various other stakeholders and collaborating agencies. At this point, I would like to turn it over to council and receive any feedback or questions that you may have regarding the report.
Thank you, Yvette. If we can go back to the full screen. So I can see everybody. Councilman Rodriguez has a question. And I'd also like to add that Councilman Rodriguez serves with myself on the MCTC board. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Member Dillon. Yvette, I know that one of the suggestions that was brought back but didn't constitute an unmet need was the Walmart stop. And I just wanted to ask again, you know, I think I had asked before, and I'm not sure if it constitutes for a stop, but the current stop that we have now, is this the one next to Walgreens?
Yes.
Is that correct? So, you know, I think this is a question that I had posed to the engineer regarding like what they call a bulb out or a lay-by type of lane that would allow for a bus to just kind of come into the Cleveland, the main street there and see if that's even possible. Not sure if there's any conversations in regards to that and why we can't explore that. Only because people would have to cross the street, and this is mainly where they shop, is at that Walmart shopping center.
So are you asking whether or not we have explored it? Or
I know we have in the past. I'm asking, that was brought up again this time around. regarding why the Walmart stop is not revisited? Can I ask why? Why was that not
Yes,
considered?
so it was brought up last year and it was brought up again this year. Last year, we went through a couple of steps to determine whether or not it was feasible to develop a bus stop at that time. Given the research and the evaluation that was conducted by staff, it was determined that it was not safe or feasible to develop the stop at a preferred location alongside Walmart, and therefore we felt that we needed to do a more thorough assessment. So it was incorporated into the Caltrans planning grant. Now that we have obtained this grant, we are going to utilize this grant to assess feasibility.
And I'm not sure if memory serves me right or not, but I know that if we considered a design for a bus stop there, not sure if that would be encroaching into Walmart's property. So that I think that's what I heard before, but you know, certainly why it's not feasible, certainly I don't think that it's not. I mean, I certainly think it's feasible. I think that you know, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of demand for that. There's a lot of people that want to go out to Walmart, and I feel that that certainly constitutes for a stop. But again, I don't recall if it was due to Walmart not willing to participate, or if it was more of a city, maybe the fact that it's just not feasible. I don't recall which one it was, but certainly I think that it would constitute a stop just because the number of people that are in demand of shopping in that area. Big area to shop, and we have to make them cross the street, which I don't think is that safe, by the way.
Councilman Rodriguez, I can probably answer that question really fast. The stop was right in front of the Sal's restaurant, and the property owner that runs that area was not happy with the stop. It was blocking a lot of the traffic, so that's why it was moved. But Walmart is run by a different property manager, which the stop could be somewhere by Walmart, but that wasn't entertained in any of the conversations. It was where it was at, that was not a good location. And that property manager was like, it can't be here. But we could have entertained conversations to put it in front of Walmart, and they were probably willing to do that. So that's maybe something we need to look into.
This would be more of a request to do something on Cleveland, like a pull-out lane or something that the bus can pull into and then pull out. That was my suggestion, but again, I don't recall what engineering had suggested at the time, if it was more of encroaching into Walmart's property or not. But certainly, I think it calls for just another look at it and see if that's something that we can potentially bring back.
Mr. Councilman, why don't we give our city engineer an opportunity to address
Sure,
that?
thank you, please.
Yes. With regard to potential bus stops on Cleveland Avenue, any place you put it that's not at a controlled location, we have the potential for bus riders to dart across traffic. If we were to do something like that, we would want to go ahead and try to figure out a way to prevent that from happening. As it is, Cleveland is we all know it's a highly traveled location. If we place it on one side of the street and riders want to go ahead and get to the south side of the street over by the Lowe's Center, we are going to be creating a situation that might lead to accidents. So if we were to do something on Cleveland, I'd prefer to go ahead and place bus stops closer to this traffic signal, a little bit further to the west from Walmart, so that they have a controlled location to cross and they can potentially have a bus stop on the opposite side of the street as well.
So forgive me, I'm not an engineer here, but what would you call the pullout, or would they call it my understanding, a bulb-out or a lay-by lane?
It's a turnout. It's a bus. It's a forgive me, I'm losing the term as well, but call it a turnout. The buses are able to pull out of the way of traffic, and traffic continues to flow on the street. So it's relatively minimal impact on the the platoon of cars going up and down the street. Mid-block sections are not terribly harsh on the bus headways, depending upon how much traffic is on the street, because the buses, while they can pull in easily, they have to find a way to go ahead and pull back out onto the street fairly quickly. Depending upon where you place them, that's not such a big deal. But the riders still may wish to go ahead and cross the street, and that's something you want to avoid. You want to go ahead and get the riders to a point where they can cross the street safely, as opposed to someplace else. So if they're attempting to go ahead and make a quick changeover from one route to another, inevitably people will dart, and that's what we want to try to address when we place bus stops safely.
Yeah, and as the city continues to grow, I mean, obviously you want to consider that we want to put them both east and west of Cleveland. And obviously there's shopping centers on both ends. So I'm not saying that would probably be an inconvenience, but certainly as a city continues to grow, we want to start looking out for future growth.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if that would constitute for both stops on both ends.
Well, I think there is some psychology in locating bus stops. A bus stop that's located further into the Walmart center, I mean, somewhat further near Sells, which obviously they don't want the bus stop, but if it's that far enough into the center, they're not likely to be darting across parking lots to go ahead and get across the street to someplace. At the same time, you're now asking the buses to drive through the parking lot, trying to avoid other cars while getting there. So you have to weigh the pluses and the minuses. Is the center willing to accept a bus stop? What are the risks to the buses and the passengers on board trying to get through there? And even if you do that, you're looking at changing your headways. And by headway, I mean, how long does it take for a bus to travel a route? If they spend an extra 5 minutes negotiating a shopping center, then you have to try to make up for that capacity loss.
These are all very good points, and the reason why I wanted to have this discussion. Councilman Rodriguez, were you finished with your questions?
Well, again, I think here, Keith, I wasn't really considering something within the shopping center, but rather alongside Cleveland, east and west. And I think, if the issues are regarding hazards with pedestrians, then you keep bus stops on both ends. I mean, they're both shopping centers on the north and south side of Cleveland. So I would think that it would constitute for some stop at some point that would have traffic go both east and west. So that was just my suggestion.
Potentially, I think that the grant that the transit department has will address that far better than I ever would. I'm not an expert in transit. Yeah.
Well, I thought you were.
He's an expert in everything.
Thank you.
I've read a book or two that included some paragraphs and discussions.
Thank you.
The history and discussions I've had briefly, Walmart wanted to expand on that, I guess, south or southwest portion, that grassy area, and they weren't entertaining loss of sidewalk or grassy area. The last time I spoke with them, and I think Keith, you might have been in that conversation as well. They also did not want the bus to stop anywhere near the front doors. They did suggest maybe over towards the bank, which also became a safety issue. If you're going to drop somebody off at the bank 75 yards away from the front door, and you have to navigate through traffic, especially if you're in a senior citizen, or if you're in a wheelchair or walker or something of that effect. All these discussions have come about, and I appreciate it, because there are a lot of questions and concerns and discussions. And as a member of MCTC, when I hear that there are no unmet transit needs, that's really something that by definition we may meet that, Yvette, and I understand completely what you're saying, but it's wrong, because I think we are falsely asking our community to give their input, and then our answer is, by definition, there are no unmet transit needs. So maybe we change the definition. Maybe we have, by definition, does it serve the community? Is it effective? Is it reasonable? That's one unmet need. But as far as community input, we're really missing the boat there. And this is where I share Councilwoman Gallegos' frustration, and that's something as simple as signage. If somebody wants to have trash cans, whether it's on the bus or next to the bus stop, and we cannot, in a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable price, meet that need for somebody who wants to see our city look better, shame on us. If it's signage, if it's free rides for students to community college, our students that work well with their hands, that cannot afford to go to a D1 school, and quite frankly, Madeira Unified is saying some kids don't go to school simply because they don't have a ride to school, and it takes us years to get to that point. Shame on us. ADA enhancements are cleanliness. If we cannot reasonably meet these, what our community considers an unmet need, then shame on us. 2 years ago, I brought it to your attention, Yvette, that we have 2 bus stops on Sunset just east of Westbury. I live in that area, and this is not an area personally that I see the bus multiple times, if at all, but yet these stops are directly across the street from one another, and they are only about 50 steps from the intersection, yet we have 2 of them. But on Cleveland, where, as Councilman Rodriguez just said, this is our destination, we only have 1, and we're worried about people darting across the street. Again, by definition, when we say there are no unmet needs, I don't accept that. There are a number of unmet community request needs that we need to meet reasonably and answer to our community. If not, they're no longer going to communicate with us. These are people that take the bus to Walmart, to their doctor, to the pharmacy, to the grocery store, to the hospital, and sometimes it's just across town to visit grandmother, and to school. We should not have these simple unmet needs ignored or overlooked. And so I too, Councilwoman, share your frustration, and I can no longer look people in the eye and tell them by definition there are no unmet needs. Just by conversation alone this evening as council members, that I'm not sure how many of you actually take the bus. You have questions because you represent this community. You represent those that do take the bus, and you're bringing that here. So we need to do a better job with our transit system. I think MV Transit does a great job, but we're talking about being efficient. We're talking about always improving, and I think this is our opportunity to do so. I see Mr. Huff is with us this evening. Good to see you, David. You have something to add? We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to go about, I completely understand where you and Council are coming from as far as with the outcome. So the outcome states there are no unmet needs. That is not a good service to the community. One of the things I would like to go about addressing is, yes, true, by definition, that's the outcome. But at the same time, MCTC, they put those results back in front of us and they say, well, here are the findings. Move forward, how you decide to move forward. So with that being said, yes, by definition, but as a transit division and even work with an MV public transportation, we are going to begin taking the steps to looking into those areas. I know one of the biggest things when it comes to the bus stops, and I know there's the plan to be a future meeting, both the bus stop signs. There was brief conversations as though the initial step is to do the Madeira transportation plan to figure out what we're going to do with our routes. The temporary, a brief conversation, I remind you, was to do the bus stops, to move forward with doing the bus signs. But when it comes to the numbering as to which one, to do a temporary sticker. So yes, even though we may be replacing the signs completely, the signs can still be reused from stop A to stop B. So like I said, so true, I agree with you, but we are going to take the steps to move forward with those areas.
Thank you. And that's the whole purpose for the conversation. Again, as a member of Madera County Transportation, which we encompass Chowchilla, routes to the mountain area, also to Avenue 12 and so on. That's not a road I want to travel because it will definitely take a long time. But in the city of Madeira, I think we, at City Hall and the resource that we have, we can address this for our riders within our city limits. And so thank you, Mr. Huff, for those comments. And just as another point, I do want to get this on record. As I mentioned, the 2 bus stops across the street from one another, We do not have a bus stop down the street from our courthouse. I don't even think we have one near our courthouse. I think you would have to walk blocks if you took the bus to the courthouse, and down the street. That's H Street. Is that H, or forget? I believe it's H Street. We have some residents in there that have been basically begging and have stopped asking through the unmet transit needs, because they have to walk down Madeira Avenue 145 to catch the nearest bus stop. So frustration level sets in, and I just really hate sometimes to have red tape and bureaucracy in government versus common sense. So again, that's why we bring this before you, so that we can actually take action and get things done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Any other comments from council? Thank you all very, very much. Thank you, Yvette, for bringing this back to council. I look forward to moving forward, and we want to make sure that we just provide the best service delivery possible in all areas, including our public transportation for our citizens in Madeira. Moving on to item E2, this is discussion on status and action taken on measures to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The item before you this evening is an update on I apologize, I'm just opening up a PowerPoint here on the measures that the city has taken to help mitigate COVID-19. And I'm going to share my screen with the council. Thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, council may recall that we in partnership with various agencies here at the city, including the Chamber of Commerce, the city of Chowchilla, Madera County, and various the EDC and the various Chamber of Commerces throughout Madera County received notification from Cal OES that we were eligible to receive PPE for businesses to distribute to their employees. The city has received the PPE, and we begun to sort it and package it on October the 8th. Last week, we reached out to various businesses using social media, direct contacts, notifying them of its availability. And we've had approximately 200 businesses in the city of Madeira go to the fairgrounds and pick it up free of charge. And this is hand sanitizer. These are masks, and it's also and there are also face shields. And again, this is free of charge for local businesses. And the goal is to provide businesses with free PPE for use by their employees for up to 30 days. And here are a couple of photos. So the city did have numerous staff there sorting it, and you can tell in the background, it's a lot of work. There was a lot of effort over 3 days. Here are some photos of some local business owners and managers picking up the PPE. There's the obligatory thumbs up, which we obviously asked for to show their appreciation to the city, so we can report back to Cal OES. Again, we do have to report back to Cal OES. We have to provide data notifying them of who this information went out to, or who the PPE went out to. I apologize. So again, a few minutes ago, I said over 200. It's 240 local businesses picked up the PPE. We had 200 businesses pre-register. We did ask for pre-registration if possible. It wasn't mandatory, but the reason we did that, it made the process go a little bit faster, because again, we do have to report back to Cal OES who we're going to distribute it to. However, no businesses were turned away if they did not pre-register. The registration site was being hosted by the Chamber of Commerce in partnership with the various agencies that were involved. We roughly, these 250 businesses or 240 businesses represent roughly 5,000 employees. So again, this is free PPE for up to 5,000 employees here in the city of Madeira. We distributed over 180,000 face masks, 28,000 face shields, and 550 gallons of hand sanitizer were distributed. And obviously, we're extremely grateful to Cal OES, and we're even more grateful to our local businesses that took advantage of it. So the next step, we do have additional PPE available. We reached out to the fairgrounds. They have been gracious enough to allow us to continue to store it at the fairgrounds. So we're obviously extremely appreciative of the fairgrounds. We are going to, the plan now is to do direct mailings to all local businesses in the city to inform them if they have not picked up their PPE and they would like to, it is available to them. It is on a first come, first served basis. We ran some approximate numbers based on the number of businesses we have in the city by the number of employees based on state data, and that's how we determined what our ask was of Cal OES. We have already started a second distribution. We've already started doing direct contacts with some businesses that we are knowledgeable of that did not receive it. And out of the 200 businesses that pre-registered, only 2 businesses were not able to pick up their PPE. So that's a pretty good success rate when 200 businesses registered and all but 2 of them actually showed up. But the goal now is that we're going to try to identify a way to make sure that those 2 businesses are still going to receive it. So again, the goal is to get the PPE out to local businesses so they're providing it for their employees, so their employees feel like they're safe during the pandemic. So again, this was a very collaborative effort. The City of Madeira, the Chamber of Commerce, Madeira EDC, Madeira County Workforce, Madeira Fairgrounds, and that's just here in the city. In the county as a whole, we had numerous meetings with Madeira County Chamber of City of Chowchilla, and I believe there are 5 Chamber of Commerces in the foothills, and we were all collectively involved. We had numerous Zoom meetings where we talked about how we collectively would receive it, the timing of that, and specifically Gabby in the administration office here at the city took the lead on behalf of the entire county. So we're obviously appreciative of her efforts. So again, this is an overview of, there are a lot of people involved. However, there were a couple of people that spent days assisting us. Christina from PD, Adam from Parks, Drew from Public Works, Johnny from Public Works, Roger from Public Works out at the wastewater treatment plant, Jeff Parker from Public Works, Michael Public Works, and Gabby was instrumental in this process. And with that, the city continues to be closed to the public. However, we are still open for business. We are very fortunate that we have a lot of understanding community members right now, and I apologize, my computer. We have a lot of understanding community members right now. At the same time, we're also in the middle of a transition period in our utility billing. Last month, we changed utility bills, so utility bills have changed a little bit. We are pretty close. Obviously, whenever you have a change that's going to impact 14,000 customers, sometimes you have small glitches, and we are learning of those glitches now. And so our efforts in utility billing and our finance department team and our public works team, we are working through those items. We are receiving an increased number of calls because the utility bills look a little bit different. But our ask of the community is just to temper your expectations. We are not charging late fees. We are not going to shut anyone off, especially during COVID times. But especially if there are minor mistakes, which could be attributed to the transition of utility billing systems. So with that concludes my presentation, and I'm prepared to answer any questions from either the mayor or the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Hawley.
To the city manager and to the staff, I think they did a wonderful job. I went out there the other day to pick up stuff for Big Brothers Big Sisters. They had a system that was well beyond something I ever expected to see happen. Ran so smoothly. The staff that were there, I can honestly say Madeira did a good job of making sure people had their PPE products, and it wasn't bogged down. It wasn't people getting in nobody else's way. So it was really set up nice, and I like to commend the city and the city manager and staff for what they done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Any other comments for Mr. Rodriguez? Arnaldo, you and or Mr. Scarborough, our parks, specifically at Town and Country Park, it was a while ago, maybe a couple of months or so ago, that we had some out-of-town teams take advantage of our parks, and they were having impromptu, what they call friendlies or tournaments and things like that. So in order to stop the spread of COVID and to have the potential of kids next to one another in the dugouts and parents in the stands, we put the orange barriers out there. But it seemed like we didn't mow the lawn either. And I know some wanted to still take advantage of our park and go out there and either throw the Frisbee. There's people out there at Town and Country that are playing volleyball on the ball fields and still trying to enjoy the park and social distance. Are we purposely not mowing the lawns, or is that just something we got behind on, or what can our community expect by way of still having the park available for our residents?
Yeah, so that was a Band-Aid's attempt to minimize use of the specifically of the baseball fields, because again, we had a large number of teams that were being organized. They were not from the city of Madeira. These were out-of-town teams with outside organizers. Some of these were for-profit organizations or teams that were attempting to take advantage of our parks. And at the same time, again, we collectively felt the best thing to do to make sure that our community members were protected and our healthcare workers and our first responders was to minimize potential opportunities for people to take advantage of those situations. So we specifically allowed the grass to grow. I know John and his team, we are going back now. We're doing a little bit of catch up because we know aesthetically it doesn't look very good. But until we receive clearance from county health and the state, we simply want to be certain that we're diligent in our efforts. But with that being said, there's a fine line between things looking really bad and being safe. And those are things that John and his team, I know, are always looking at. And so I'll be sure that I touch base with John and his team to be sure that things are on the right side of not looking bad, but at the same time, we're being smart about it.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure the community will appreciate you saying that. Any other questions or comments from council or staff on our last report? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez, for that update. We'll move into council reports, and I'll ask Councilman Robinson for his report. Please unmute, Mr. Councilman.
I attended a wedding in Arizona, and I spent 4 days there, and we practiced social distancing. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much for that. Councilwoman Gallegos.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hawley.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. And Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Member Joyner. I just wanted to give a big thank you to Mr. Eddie Rincon. He's in our neighborhood watch, looking out for some of the residents. I know that Arnoldo had touched on the billing with the new services that we've got and the statement that's gone out. I know a lot of people were concerned about the statement and whether or not the city was open, but he's done a pretty good job of just getting out there and letting people know that we are open. You know, you want to call between these hours. But just want to give a shout out to him. Thank you so much. He certainly helped out in answering some of the questions that some of the residents have regarding the water bill.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Montes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I had a couple meetings this week. One with the Youth Leadership Institute. They're not letting the pandemic slow them down. They're still trying to figure out what they can do, how they can be involved, and giving us a training on how we can work better with them. So I think they're reaching out to council members, and it's a good presentation. Also met with SWAT, so Students Working Against Tobacco. And they also gave me, so I got a pretty good education this last week or since the last council meeting. And again, I look forward to them presenting to council. I think they said early next year. So they're not letting pandemic slow them down. They're going online and they're adapting to technology a lot better than we are, because I was trying to click things and was not muting and unmuting. And so I feel everybody's paying here.
Thank you for that. They're a great group of people, very passionate about tobacco control and the effects it has on our youth. Thank you very much for meeting with them. And Mr. Rodriguez, if you can help me out here and maybe give us a quick update. I have personally gotten some great feedback about the lights being put up in our community, thanks to our energy savings through ENGIE and our solar program. Some have questioned maybe their neighborhood or kind of a rhyme or reason. And so maybe just a brief update as to how we're putting lights in each district, I believe, as citywide. So if you can just maybe give us a quick update how that installation is going.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So council may recall that we did purchase 150 solar street lights. The solar street lights are roughly $1.3 million in total, which equates to approximately $9,000 per street pole. That is more than your traditional hardwired street light. However, the challenge with hardwired street lights in some of the neighborhoods where we're going, as council is very well aware, they're in some of our older parts of our community, because in the older parts of the community that were built prior to contemporary planning and engineering standards, those neighborhoods were constructed without the benefit of street lights. The challenge in those situations is you have mature landscaping, you have mailboxes, you have trees in the way. And what we didn't want to do is disrupt the urban fabric of the neighborhoods and be disruptive to their daily needs. So we thought the best solution and the most cost-effective method for addressing the lack of lighting would be to install solar streetlights. The solar streetlights do have a warranty. I want to say 25 years. Don't quote me, maybe it's 20. I'm going off the top of my head. We have had a large number of them installed. For example, if one were to go in the Barsodi track, those are installed. If you were to go on the south side of Jefferson, on the south side of Sunset, west of Pine, in that neighborhood, which was probably built in the late 40s, early 50s, those street lights have been put in. And along with our partnering agency, ENGIE, we've strategically been identifying the neighborhoods. In terms of the specific locations, the city team, what we looked at is we looked at what neighborhoods lacked existing street lights, and then we based it on distance requirements. We attempted to put most of the street lights at mid-block. We did not identify these at the intersections. At the intersections, we would want something that's a little bit more, not necessarily secure, but the wattage has to be a little bit higher. And with street lights, you always run the risk of the wattage dimming slightly. And we wanted something that was a little bit more permanent than 20 or 25 years. Permanent being probably 100 years or 80 years or 75 years. And so what we identified are spacing needs based on existing city standards. And at the same time, we did not want to deviate from the existing city standards, because if you deviate from those standards, at that point, you're going to have odd spacing. Instead of your typical spacing of 250 feet or something along those lines, if you start going to 500 feet, granted, you would cover more of the city, but you would have deficiencies in those areas. And so when we identified those areas, we said, well, we know these are locations. We attempted to pepper them throughout the city. With that being said, I'll be the first to admit that 150 street lights is not sufficient. At some point, staff is going to more than likely have to come back to council and request for additional funding to add additional street lights. I don't have a number off the top of my head that I can tell you is 200 going to do it, is another 300 going to do it. However, in our efforts to address deficiencies in our community, be it sidewalks, be it street lights, be it street trees, those are things that we're collectively working on. And the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And I really feel like we're taking some of our initial steps in addressing some of these deficiencies in our community. There was, again, we attempted to cover a very large part of the community, But the part we focused on are some of the older parts of the neighborhood or of the community. We focused around Madera High School, south of Thomas Jefferson, north of Cleveland Avenue, and around Columbia and Sierra Streets over by Washington and by the drive-in movie theater, proximate to the water tank. And so those are some of the areas. I'm not going to say that were more needful than others, because that diminishes other neighborhoods. But we simply looked at some of the older parts of the communities that we felt would be more challenging to hardwire lights. And again, these are some of our oldest parts of our community. Some of these neighborhoods date back to the 20s and 30s, and we thought that it'd be most appropriate to begin there. So hopefully that answers your question there.
It did. Thank you very much for answering the question and the update. And you know, the glass is really half full in that there are still deficiencies left, and it's going to be way more than 150. But these are 150 lights that just weeks or months ago that we did not have. And so you're right. It's a great step in the right direction. This comes from years of this council being fiscally responsible and moving into solar, allowing us to save this money that we can invest back in our community. So I thank current council and past council for their support with going solar. And I know the community is appreciative. And as we talked about before with our Walk to School program and Transportation Commission being able to take funds and having safe routes to schools and building sidewalks. So yes, there's deficiencies, but we've done so much in the last 3 or 4 years or so for the community by way of street lights and sidewalks. So we look forward to continuing to add those sidewalks into the neighborhoods. And so thank you and the team and Foss, thank you and you guys for helping us move this forward. I know you've taken quite a few calls regarding the street lights and questions and concerns. And as far as I know, you've handled that very well. So thank you very much. That's all I have as far as report. We're going to go into closed session. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening and staying with us. We hope to see you on our next regular scheduled meeting, which is November 4th. And with that, Hilda, if you can take us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For closed session, you have one item tonight. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9D4, and it's City of Madeira versus High Speed Rail Authority.
Great, thank you, Hilda. And once again, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. We will now adjourn to closed session. Okay, we're back from closed session. Ms. Montoya, if you would make an announcement, please.
Thank you. The council met in closed session on the item G1. Councilmember Holly was absent from the session. There is no reportable action.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us once again. Our next regular scheduled meeting is November 4th. With that, meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. Have a good night.